Hello guys, and welcome to Dovetails and Dado's Woodshop. We are getting ready to film, or I guess we are filming, Get Kids Woodworking episode 8. In this episode we are going to make a very simple shaker bench. It's something that I built a couple of them a couple weeks ago and thought, man, this is fun. This would be very easy for kids and adults to build together. Some people refer to it as a 5-board bench because you need 5 pieces of wood to build one. I went ahead and dimensioned some of my lumber just because I cut everything out of 1x12s. But I cut everything to dimensions that if you went to the lumber yard, the big box store, you would be able to pick up a piece of wood, take it home, cut it to length, and you'd have everything you need. So, what we start with are legs. This is just some pine, 1x10. So the actual measurements are 3/4 of an inch thick by 9 1/4 inches wide, and I cut mine to 19 inches long. It seems like the typical bench height is 18 to 20 inches, so I thought, you know what, we'll just go in the middle. I went 19, and then as we build this, you'll see that we have another 3/4 of an inch on top of that, making the final height of the bench 19 3/4 of an inch. So you got your 2 legs. You need 2 of those. 1 inch by 9 1/4 by 19. The second board I'll show you, or the third board, is the top, the bench seat. It is a what they call a 1x12. It's actually 3/4 of an inch by 11 1/4 inches wide, and I made mine 36 inches long. About the right size for a person or an adult and a kid, or just an adult. The 4th and 5th pieces that will go into this are a 1x5, which is 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/2 inches wide. And I cut these a little shorter. I cut these at 34 inches. That will give us an inch overhang on either end from the frame up to the bench seat. I'll give you an idea. Take the camera over here. As you can tell, my shop is still a hot mess. I keep trying to get things organized, but I'm running short on time and funds. So, this is one of them that I built a couple weeks ago. I don't know, man, that light is horrible. There you go, you can see it a little better there. But as you can tell, we have 2 legs, stretchers, top. So pretty simple. Okay guys, so I think where we need to start is to turn and not be in front of that light. There we go. Make that a little easier for you guys to see. And I'm going to tilt this up just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So the first thing I think we need to do is to find the center of our leg boards. These are 9 1/4 inches wide, so that means that our center point will be 4 5/8 inches, and make a mark. Once you've done that, I would come out on the bottom of the board here and measure in like 2 or 2 1/2 inches, something like that, and make a mark at the very bottom. Let's go 2 1/2 inches from both edges. You'll be able to see this here in a second. Okay, so as you can see, I marked in 2 1/2 inches from both edges, and then I also marked a center line there. So now now what you want to do is just take a square, another piece of wood, anything you have, and you are going to want to connect those lines. It's pretty simple. Just set your board down on there, draw a line, flip it over, and do the same thing. Okay, so you'll end up with a piece that looks like this. Now, there's a lot of ways of cutting this out. I'm just going to use a handsaw, just because it's just as quick to do that as it is to go over to the table, get the jigsaw out, and get it set up. Alright guys, welcome back. I got my handsaw. Seen its better days, but it still cuts good. But I was going to tell you, I don't have a workbench built yet. I do plan on building one, but that will come with time. So instead, I decided that I would just use the bench I previously built, and we will use that as a saw bench. Now, I know Stumpy Nubs and Roy Underhill have both put out shows about how to build a saw bench. They're quite simple. Pretty much it's just a place that you can put your body weight on the board to hold it in place while you saw. If you do a quick Google search or a YouTube search, I'm sure you can find a plan. I remember Roy Underhill saying in his show that a kitchen chair works quite well. So anyways, I'm going to cut these V's out for the legs, and we'll go from there. Alright, there you have it. One down, one to go. Alright guys, got both those cut. Now we need to figure out how to notch out for our stretchers. The simplest way of doing that is to not drop your pen. Ha, I'm back. Okay, the easiest way of doing this, pan that down a little bit, and hopefully you guys will be able to see, is to take your stretcher and set it on the edge of your board, of your leg board, and flush it on the top and the edge. I'm not sure if you can quite see that. So we want to hold this flush here and on the edge, the outside edge. Draw a line, and that leaves you with this. Now to cut this, I'm just going to go back to the handsaw, and I'm going to make sure I keep my saw on the waist side of this line, and then come back in and cut across here. And then what will happen is our stretcher will sit on that. So on these notches here, we need to make 4 of them. 1, 2, and then 2 on the other leg. Alright guys, I have notched both of our legs out. Now, a little word to the wise, save that little piece that you cut off of there. It will come in handy later for attaching the seat. It is time to start some assembly on our little shaker bench. As you can tell, I am going to build it from the top down, upside down. So I have my top on the workbench outfeed table that I use, and then I have my stretcher standing on end and my legs in place. I'm going to go ahead and take that leg down, and as you can tell, we have some options here. You could come in and you could notch off your corners to give it a little bit of a cleaner look. Or you can do what I'm going to do on this particular bench and just butt them in there like that. Keep everything flush and smooth. By doing so, we really need to pre-drill holes for our screws to keep this board from splitting out. Our legs are 3/4 of an inch thick, so we want to drill a hole 3/8 of an inch in from the end, and I went 1 inch from either edge. To pre-drill those, I'm using a 1/8 inch drill bit. I got a couple more here to drill out. Alright, I already pre-drilled the other one just for time's sake. And then we will drive in our screws. I would suggest screwing them in by hand at first. You can use a drill with a Phillips head drive on it. I would just suggest not really torquing them down a lot, or else you may split that board out. And I seem to have misplaced my screwdriver. There it is. So, it doesn't take much to drive a screw by hand. I just prefer to do it that way. Okay. Sorry, I'm blocking your view there. Now, as far as screws go, I had a box of number 6 1 1/4 inch drywall screws, and I decided to use those because the only other wood screws I had were 1 1/2 inch, and if we use those when we get to the top, it could create some issues. So I'm going to spin this around, and I've already got that end in. So we'll do the same thing on this end. Now, one thing you kind of want to check as you're building this is that you're square. Try to get things as square as possible. That looks pretty good. Alright. This is where an extra set of hands really does help. Alright. Couple more screws. Trying to stay out of the way so you guys can see. Alright. And then the final screws we need to drive in are on this corner. Alright, last screw. Alright, now our base is assembled. Alright guys, now that we have, wow, I'm going to tilt this up just a little bit. Alright, now that we have our base assembly put together, you will remember that I mentioned to keep the blocks that we notched out of our legs. This is what we are going to use to attach our top to the base. The first thing we need to do is drill a pilot hole somewhere in the middle of the block. Using that same 1/8 inch drill bit, just go through them and drill a hole. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I'll show you why here in a second. Okay, once you've done that, what we're going to do is we are going to glue these blocks to the inside of our base, like that. Somewhere, it doesn't really matter where, as long as it's flush with the top. Little side note, the other day I was at Walmart and I saw these little dispenser bottles for like $1 for a 2-pack. I picked them up and they make great little glue bottles. So I just run a little bead of glue, smooth it out, grab a little clamp, and put it on the side of the inside of the base and clamp it in place. And I'll show you, I'll get the camera over here so you can see a little better. Make sure that you may not be able to see it from that direction. Ah! Okay, make sure that you put the hole that you just drilled so that you can put a screw through the block and into the top of the bench. And you'll want to let that glue set up for 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour. But really, once you clamp it, it doesn't take long for it to set up. The key is just to make sure it's flush with the top and doesn't go above the top of the base. Alright, 2 more of those. And really, this is a long grain to long grain glue joint. so it's really strong. I'm gonna move to this side. Alright, there we go. Show you what we got. As you can see, we've glued the 4 blocks in place, and that is where we will attach the top. Now, I will let that set up and we will get back to you. Final assembly. As you can see, I got my 4 blocks glued into place. So I am going to set this aside for just 1 second. And I will bring in the bench seat. And then we will set the base on top of it. And now all we have to do is put 4 screws into our blocks, and that will attach it to the top. Now those blocks are 3/4 of an inch and the top is 3/4 of an inch, so we can use the same 1.25" screws that we used to attach the stretchers or aprons to the leg. And you can just use a tape measure or anything really. You should have 1 inch on both ends. The important thing is just to get this centered in place, both side to side and front to back. And then you will want to put your 4 screws in it. If you follow the dimensions that I went through on this one, you should have 1 inch overhang all the way around. That looks pretty good. So I am going to go ahead and screw this in place. And let's talk about finishing. There are many ways you can finish a bench like this out. If I think it's going to go outside, I would paint it with an exterior grade paint. If you're using it indoors, you can use an interior grade paint. Or you can use a finish, just a stain and oil finish, or any number of finishes. You could distress it, you know, like stain it and then paint it and sand some of it back and have all kinds of fun with that. The other thing that I've been asked to do on stuff like this is to make it extremely rustic. And when I do that, there's a lot of things you can do to distress wood, make it look rustic. The kids may enjoy beating it up with a hammer, or you could give them a hand plane and let them have fun trying to learn how to hand plane a piece of lumber smooth. Chances are they'll leave some track marks and gouges and stuff in it, which would look pretty cool if you then stained it after that. I got those 4 screws in. So this little bench is built and ready to be finished. If you have some 80 or 100 grit sandpaper, you can take it to kind of knock the edges off, keep things kind of rounded. If you're gonna paint it, you're probably gonna want to do some sanding on it. If you're going to stain it, you'd want to do some sanding on it. There's just all kinds of ways you can finish one of these out to get a different look. I would suggest looking around online, figuring out what kind of finish you would want to use on it. But anyways, that's a simple little bench. One thing that I've seen people do is build something similar to this and then drill big holes in the top of it, or cut big holes in the top of it for flower plants and flower pots and plants. All kinds of options. So have some fun with it. Build a couple of them with a few boards. You know, for less than $30 or $40, you could have 2 or 3 of them. So finish them out different ways and see what you like the most. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about the video. If you feel like supporting us, we are on Patreon. We would love your support there. You guys have a good day, and we'll see you next time.